Hello, everybody. Welcome to ManHound Sound Sessions. I'm your host, Bill Wardlow. My guest today, J.C. Alexander. He plays in a plethora of bands. Most notably, he's the frontman for Pointless Pleading. He's also the drummer for Black Hat Nation, both of which are coming out with albums soon. Really looking forward to both. I had a great talk with J.C., and he gave a hell of a performance. I think you're really going to enjoy this. I know I did. We recorded this interview before the coronavirus ruined everything. So you'll hear us talk about Pointless Fest, which is supposed to come up in June, but I think it's going to be postponed along with everything else. So I would follow Pointless Pleading on Facebook, and I'm sure they'll update you on when they're going to have it. It's a great event. There's a lot of great local talent out there, a lot of great punk bands and metal bands, and it's a really good time. It's a great party. I highly recommend going and checking it out. With that said, pandemics suck. And I'm just ready for this to be over. I want to go see some live music. I want to go play some shows. I want to record some bands here in the studio. I am over this. And that's all I've got to say about it. So, without further ado, here's my interview with J.C. Alexander. J.C., welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming down all the way from Chillicothe, Ohio.
Glad to be here.
What's been going on up there in Meadland?
In Meadland. Yeah. Well, other than the occasional odor, I've been working on a couple albums. Played drums for Black Hat Nation. We just finished our album and almost finished with Pointless Pleading's album. And just ready to get the warm weather and the summer going, you know.
I'm looking really forward to both of those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Got Pointless Fest coming up shortly.
Yes, the first weekend of June. It'll be in Bainbridge.
That's always a really good time.
Yep.
I love going out there. So, how'd you get started playing?
I started when I was 15. I've always loved music, but early on I listened to popular hip hop at the time, MC Hammer and stuff like that when I was young.
I never pictured you as an MC Hammer.
Right, right. But I had a pretty rich musical education in the sense, like, my grandma listened to a lot of bluegrass, so I listened to, the Stanley Brothers. Yeah, she listened to Johnny Cash, so I listened to Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, those guys.
Nice.
My dad was into, hard-hitting 70s rock, like AC/DC, Black Sabbath, stuff like that, Zeppelin. So I heard a lot of that stuff when I was younger.
And then you chose to listen to MC Hammer.
And, well, when I was a kid, I chose to listen to MC Hammer. When I was a teenager, I was listening to more, punk rock stuff, Dead Kennedys, Misfits.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Now you're talking my language.
Yeah. And of course, the alternative music that was popular in the 90s, Nirvana and stuff like that, Melvins and stuff. And yeah, just kind of like that little cluster of different genres just kind of made me say, well, what else is out there? So now I listen to Jamaican music and throat singing. I can't think of what it's called.
The Buddhist monk throat singing.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Mongolian. That's what I was thinking. I was trying to think of the country. Mongolian throat singing.
That was back in the day before you could just jump on YouTube and listen to whatever you wanted.
Right. Yeah.
Used to be hard to hunt stuff like that down.
Right. I kind of like the Jamaican music was easy. I listened to Jamaican music a lot when I was a kid. When I was younger, when I was a teenager and stuff, because it had there was that kind of tie with punk rock, because there were bands in the 70s that had that punk ska thing in Britain, and then in the 90s there was the ska punk thing. So, as I'm into ska, listening to ska music in America, I'm learning that, well, actually it's a much older form of music from early Jamaican. And so now I'm listening to like all the different kinds of Jamaican music, mento, and then other island music like calypso and stuff like that. And that stuff was very influential and enriching.
Nice. So what actually got you started playing?
Well, I'd have to say, to go in line with, music that you can't picture me being into with MC Hammer and Criss Cross and whatnot. I also had there for a while where I was listening to Kiss, like when I was like 11, 12, 13. I was listening to Kiss, and that's what like got me more interested in my dad's music. Like when he was listening to AC/DC, I started like rock, like right around that time, right around, once I hit double digits, like I'm starting to like peel off the hip hop layer, and I'm more listening to rock. I'm starting to get into more because the '90s music is good and stuff. So I'm listening to more of that, and I'm listening to a lot of Kiss, and I don't know. There's something about, because think whatever you want of Kiss as people. Like, they're not great people. they're pretty conniving, and they sell everything that they can, make money any way they can. That's a reasonable criticism of them. And maybe you're not a fan of their music, and we can debate on to when that's not reasonable, because I think there's definitely some times when Kiss did stuff that wasn't so great, and maybe there were some times where they were. I think Gene Simmons is an alright bass player, but that's neither here or there. The point of the matter is, the one thing that's undeniable about Kiss is that they're excellent performers. As they really pull out all the stops to put on a show.
There is bar none, nobody.
Yeah,
that puts on a better show than Kiss.
They move around, they thrash to the music, they dress up, they have explosions. I mean, they put it all out there for you, and that I thought was attractive. Like that I wanted to wear makeup and giant platform boots or anything like that, but just that I wanted to like just tumble around on a stage and just like go nuts and
right.
And it just looked fun. It just looked fun to like be into it, because I wasn't too much of a dancer, but who cares how you dance if you're holding a guitar, as long as you're moving.
Right. Yeah, the platform shoes help too. But yeah, you're not going to get an argument out of me on Kiss. I love that raw rock and roll sound.
Oh, cool. All right. I'm sure you're aware by other musicians, you'll get a lot of hate if you say anything nice about Kiss.
And I see where they're coming from, but
yeah, totally. There's.
I mean, you're talking to a Misfits fan too, so
yeah.
So that raw rock and roll attitude goes a long way for me.
Right. Yeah. And there is kind of a connection there too, because the birth of punk rock, in my opinion, I don't start in Britain with like to me it really starts with the MC5 and
the
Stooges. Yes. Detroit is the mecca of that 70s rock sound, and Kiss was part of that. Detroit Rock City, like they always said, even though they were all from New York, that they're really from Detroit, because Detroit is where it was happening.
Right. So you started playing guitar then?
Yes. Yeah, I was completely self-taught, and I tried like doing, video lessons and stuff like that, and it didn't really click. I had some luck with tablature, learning simple songs like Nirvana songs and whatever I could do that wasn't too crazy. I tried like learning stuff like Stairway to Heaven, stuff that everybody learns. But early on, I really more wanted to play bass, but guitar is just what I got. Like my parents were like, no, we're not getting you a bass. They wanted me to be able to play without the aid of other people,
Right.
because they knew if I was playing bass, eventually I would befriend some drummer and we'd be in the garage making a bunch of noise. They didn't want that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They they actually thought that through.
Right.
So when did you get around to writing your first song?
Pretty early. I don't know. Like it took a while for me to understand that there were people out there that play music and don't write. Like that has perplexed me for a long time. Like people that just like play other people's music. I don't understand like what the appeal is to it. Like, I mean, I guess it's better than doing nothing if you have nothing to do, but I've always connected playing with writing. Like I saw it as an outlet, and uh, so pretty much immediately I was writing songs, terrible as they might be.
So when was that when you wrote your first song?
Um, probably be probably the end of '95, like Christmas '95, something like that. It might have been later. It might have been like in '96. It had to take me a minute to actually learn some chords and stuff. But
Right. Where what were you, 15, 16?
yeah, yeah, I was 15.
Okay. So how long was it till you wrote your next song?
Um, hmm. Well, see, I'm not even sure if I can remember writing the first song, to be honest. Like, I don't know what it was, or I'm trying to think. I know that there was a notebook that I had, but it was so full of stuff, like, I don't even know. And I also did this thing where, like, I would have a notebook and write in it like the regular way, but then I'd also, the next time I'd start something new, I would turn it upside down and backwards and write in the other direction. I'm not sure why I did that, but like I never. It makes it makes it hard to keep track of like exactly what was when. You know.
So you would write through the notebook and then turn it over and write
No, I would just write
backwards
like
and upside
no,
down
I would
through
just
it?
write like a song in the in and I would turn it up. Like if I had to use it again for something else, if I was writing another song, I'd write in the back. Like I'd start from the back upside down, right
Oh,
in the back.
okay.
I don't know why. It's just a habit I always had. Just some quirky thing.
Okay.
And also it'd be full of like, drawings and other stuff too. It wasn't just writing that I was doing in these. There could be songs, there could be,
Right.
notes about things, or just random thoughts or pictures of things that I drew.
So what's the first song that you remember as a complete,
Hmm.
here's this song I wrote, let me play it for you?
If okay, so the very first song that I can remember, man, I don't know. It's so hard to. I mean, I guess. See, because I actually started, unlike some other people, I actually started playing with other people fairly early, like way before I was ready to, really. And sometimes we would write songs together, and I don't know if I can really call any of those like mine, because I didn't necessarily sing on them, and I didn't really write the lyrics. I just kind of helped with the structure and stuff. So
That's interesting.
probably the first one I could think of was probably a song called Migraine. And that actually ended up being a song that I eventually used in a band called One Among the Ranks, which actually is the same people that I play with now in Pointless Pleading. It was Jessica and Earl, and it was like an early, like we were a punk rock band back then. We're a metal band now, but it was the same members.
Okay. That's interesting. So what you're saying is you started structuring and helping someone else write songs before you really delve in and writing
Well,
on
well,
your
well,
own?
like I said, I was writing on my own, but it's just all kind of vague because I was a teenager, and there's all these stupid things that teenagers feel that they write down that don't really mean anything. They're important as can be at the time, but
Right.
eventually you look at these old books and you think like, why in the world was I thinking that?
Right.
But like I can't. There's nothing that stuck because I was in this the sloppy punk band called the Disappointments first, and like I said, I worked with them on structuring things, and I also helped. Despite not being able to play and never playing drums before in my life, I actually taught the guy's brother to play drums so that he could play drums and I could play bass. And I kind of knew how to do the AC/DC, hi-hat, snare, kick, meat and potatoes thing.
You can
So I
count
just
to
taught him
4?
how to do that, and we just played sloppy punk rock to that. And like I said, I worked on structure with those guys, already writing my own songs, but nothing had stuck. But then once I played in One Among the Ranks, like they didn't write, and so I did all the writing as far as like words and stuff. And what maybe if I wouldn't have been in a band, maybe I wouldn't remember those songs, but because I'd played those songs with them, they stick in my mind. You know what I mean? So if I had to say like I remember one particular, it would probably be one from that band. If you're saying, if you're not including structurally writing.
Right. So, speaking of which, what bands have you been in over the years?
Well, like I said, my first band was the Disappointments. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then I was in One Among the Ranks, and we split up for a while. And in between that, I got into a band known as Dead Weapon, and Dead Weapon was the guitar player from the Disappointments, who actually kind of could play guitar, and we got a different drummer and another guitar player and formed a band, and that was called Dead Weapon, and that was like a kind of a hardcore punk band, sort of ska punk too. Then I had a band with Michael Oney it was another punk band called FFF. And then I had a short stint with the band formerly known as Uncle Scam. I can't remember what we were called at the time, but I played bass for them for a little bit. And then I played in Rhythm Stitches for like 3 years. I played bass for Jerry Peterson and Mark Delp in the Rhythm Stitches. And to that point, that had been the longest I had been in one band. And then after that broke up, I had a band called Alexander and the Greats, which only lasted one summer. And then I was in Pointless Pleading for like 8 years. and that's pretty much the history.
You forgot Black Hat Nation.
Oh, yes. Well, Black Hat Nation kind of happened after Pointless Pleading. Like there's kind of like, I have to look at my time as a musician as like things that happened before Pointless and everything that happened after Pointless, because it's been so long now. I've literally spent has it been half? Let me think. So if you go back, okay, so it's been in like 2 or 3 years, I will have spent as much time in Pointless as I have playing music without Pointless.
That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep that many people focused on the same goals.
And honestly, it feels like we just got together a couple years ago. Time has just flown by in this band.
That's awesome. Well, let's take a break and have a listen to a song.
All right. the gutter, bathes and flees. What once was a warrior, now a broken old beast. The coke is all gone, but you know it won't be long before he's fixing for another addiction. The pain, the quest, the blood. Blow is all gone, but you know it won't be long before he's fixing for another dimension. The pain, the quest, the blood. Give it up or let it go. She's not that into you, don't you know? I'm not messing around. This ain't no playground.
All right, good job. What's your writing process these days?
I tend to write music first and then lyrics, but I do switch it up a bit sometimes. I'm open to different ideas. I collaborate with people to write things. Not so much lyrically, but structurally. Like, if there's somebody has a song, I'll write lyrics to it. Sometimes the lyrics come first, sometimes they don't. I don't know. I just kind of let it come to me. Like there's no process really. It's just when it's there, it's there.
Do you write on a regular basis?
Yeah, but there is times when I try not to think about it because I don't want to. I sometimes I'll write too much, and I feel like it brings the overall quality down. Like it's almost like I like to let the energy build and then, bring it out at once. Because it's sucks to waste. It sucks to write a lot and then end up not liking it. It's better if it feels natural.
Right. So you said you like to collaborate with others.
Mm-hmm.
How's that work?
Well, for instance, with Black Hat Nation, Sometimes Jessica will write songs and Garrett will write vocals, but sometimes Garrett will write vocals first, and I've had the privilege. I don't know if Jessica's done anything like that with him. I think usually Jessica comes up with the part first, and then he writes lyrics. But sometimes he'll write lyrics because he's writes a lot, and he'll come up with a pattern, and then I'll kind of like try to figure out how to transpose that to what the guitar part should sound like, which isn't super intuitive. Like I don't really. It wasn't easy at first, but we've managed to make a couple good songs doing that.
Heck yeah. When you're writing songs, is the lyric the most important thing? Is the music?
I mean, they need to go hand in hand. The lyrics, the music should represent the feeling that the lyrics are portraying, unless it's like there could be some times when that's not true too. Like, let's say you have a really sweet sounding song with very dark lyrics. Like, there's a comedic value to that. It's kind of like Monty Python in The Life of Brian, the Bright Side of Life. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't.
Like, it's kind of like this whistling Disney kind of tune, right? But it's all about death, and like the whole thing is like they're all up on a cross. It's a movie about like this guy that lived at the same time as Jesus, so they're all like dying up on crosses and singing this happy song about them dying on crosses. So there's stuff like that where that could not be true, but generally, if it's a sad or depressing song, I want it to sound sad or depressing. If it's a a gritty, if it's like a determination kind of song, I want it to feel very upbeat, things like that.
Right. So when you're writing lyrics, is it more important to say what you're saying or to make it fit into the music?
It is important to make it fit into the music, but if I'm not happy with how it's phrased, I will keep working at it until it has a good mixture of saying what I want to say and fitting into the music. Like, there's a balance to it.
Do you slave over things like that? Is it
sometimes? Yeah. Like, there's songs. Pointless was just in the studio, and there were songs that we had been playing. Well, we have one song. We have a song called "Pussy Whipped" that we played in One Among the Ranks. So it's a song that has been around for 20 years. And I wasn't really rewriting that one. That one was pretty much set in stone. But there's songs that we've been playing for 4 years or 5 years that I'm in the studio still tweaking the words, So it's a process.
And you'll run it all the way up until it's recorded. Do you change it after that?
Usually not. And it's all very small changes. Just maybe like I'll like a particular word more than another. Or sometimes like I try not to make things too obvious. I always want to make things general. Like, I don't want to say very specific things. Like, you're not going to hear me calling a specific name or saying a specific action. I want to make it general so that people listening to it, rather than trying to figure out what I mean by it, apply it to their own life and have their own meaning for it.
That's a good way to look at it. Good.
Yeah.
What recordings do you have out?
Most of the stuff that I've recorded is officially unreleased. Although this year I will be coming out with 2 albums, the Black Hat album and the Pointless Pleading album. But prior to that, the only thing that, there had been releases of, homemade stuff, stuff that we'd printed up ourselves. But the only thing that I've ever been on that is officially released is actually not, I don't even think I'm credited on it actually, but the Uncle Scam. It was the name. It was a Slipping Glimpse is the name of the band, and I played bass on one song. And I was to be their bass player, but it didn't last. We played one show and then they fired me.
Ouch.
Yeah,
It
it was it was
happens.
it was so epic too. We were playing at Skatopia. I don't know if you're familiar with Skatopia, but it's this dirty punk rocky place. Actually, they made a documentary about it. I think that was somewhat known about now.
Really?
At the time, huh?
Really?
Yeah, at the time though, it wasn't so much. But we were playing at Skatopia, and the band it was crazy because originally this band was a very raw, simple punk rock band. But they had two albums before this one, and on the third album they just went nuts. They started doing samples, and they had three guitar players, and I was, coming in. I was replacing the bass player. The bass player was switching to guitar, and was there. And during the gig, I just was dancing around and stuff, and I face planted, and my bass went and just made this long noise and ruined the song. And yeah, that almost broke up the band. Really, like if they wouldn't have kicked me out, they probably would have just split up totally because they were having a hard time. I'll never forget it because Oni was playing in a band called well, I won't tell that story. That's kind of disgusting. It's a little too. Well, that's some behind the scenes things. If anybody wants to ask me the story about Oni at Skatopia, I'm glad to tell it, but it wouldn't translate to the radio thing anyway. The podcast. What were we talking about?
But if you get a chance, definitely ask JC about some Oni stories.
Yeah, I got all
They're
kinds of
all
Oni
good.
stories. When someday I'm gonna write a tell-all book of Oni stories.
So yeah, we were talking about recording. So that's the only thing you've had out. You've had out previously before
Yeah.
this coming year.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's other home prints that we did, CDs that we burned ourselves. Um, I've made like split tapes with people, with other bands, but nothing official, nothing that has been printed up at a company, nothing with a barcode on it, nothing with a tipper sticker on it. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Been playing
That's
for so long and have nothing to show for it. That's the story of my life.
oh, that's pretty amazing. Just knowing how many songs you guys have.
Yeah, it's amazing to know. I've been in Pointless Pleading for 8 years, and even we haven't been able to come out with an album. But we're doing it this year for sure. I feel it's coming. It's real this time.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited.
So when writing, how do you find the time?
I mean, it's one of those things. Like I said, just comes to me. Be when you're driving. I can think of a little thing.
You never set time aside and say I need to write.
I mean, I've done that, but only when it's like extracurricular thing. Like I said, like earlier with collaborating with on Black Hat songs. I will set time aside with Garrett. Like we will have a day where he comes over and that's our thing is we're going to write a song today, but I don't know. Yeah. I never really like just put time aside. It just kind of comes to me. Like when I think of it, I mean, I'll have to put time aside. Like once I think of it, I have to capture it some way. I have to write it down or I have to get it on my phone so I kind of remember it for later. And then once I do it later, then I'll have to take time and like hammer it out. But the initial thought just always comes. Like,
Do you ever deal with writer's block?
Not as much anymore. I did for a long time, but I've gotten into good habits of certain ways that if I am blocked on a thing, like if I'm writing a song and it's and I've came to a place when I can't think of what the next thing should be, like I'll have a process that I'll go through depending on what the problem is. I'll have a process that I'll go through to kind of like figure out what the next best step is. Like if it's a rhyming issue, like if I can't think of what the next line should end with, like I'll kind of go through I'll alphabetically like narrow down like every word I could possibly use and see what I could fit in there.
And go backwards. Think
Yeah.
backwards to
Yeah, kind of like
end up
reverse
there.
engineer it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a break. Let's do another song, and we'll be right back.
All right. Long, long road I've traveled you before. I've got blisters on my feet. It rocks me to the core. But I'll take that risk, even though there's time I don't. I'll take a bullet in the chest for the one that I adore. Some men like to gamble, some men have affairs, some will become violent because their souls are bare. Some men are alcoholics, and some men crush the pill. Some give themselves to the Lord, cause that's how they get that thrill. That woman done broke your heart. She made bucket like a sweet, sweet son.
All right. So what's some of your influences?
Well, we kind of touched on that a little bit. I have a
Yeah,
pretty
we talked
broad.
about Kiss and
Yeah,
and,
right. Yeah, Kiss. That's the main influence. Everything else is
MC
just
Hammer.
pocket change. Yeah, yeah. MC Hammer and Kiss. Those are the two most important artists of the last century. No, I listened to Michael Jackson as a kid. Like I said, Johnny Cash, big ones. Listened to a lot of punk rock, a lot of alternative from the '90s, and honestly, like there's still some music I like now. During the 2000s, like the wave of stuff like Cold War Kids and Modest Mouse and Franz Ferdinand. Like I thought that music was good too. Um,
Is there someone you can point to and say, yeah, that's the kind of song I want to write?
um, the Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits,
Really?
but not maybe not so much with the writing, but the structure is amazing, and his ability. I mean, there's something about that song that just it's just the way he plays the guitar. It just sings. It just hits me emotionally in a certain way. I also had a friend named Darren that used to play in USAK. He wrote a song called "Screaming Brains" that also like hit me in a certain way. I like making songs that um, elicit a feeling like when people. I know a lot of people that hate country. Like they'll say, I hate country because it's all sad and depressing, and you lose your wife and you lose your dog, and like I'm not a huge fan of country, but what I see in country, like country and bluegrass and mountain music, the best songs out of those are the ones are the ones that make you cry, ones that make you feel that illicit response. Like the best examples I can think of is like damn near anything from Hank Williams, Man in Black, Johnny Cash. Like these songs, when you hear them, there's just like it makes you puff up your chest and like you're holding back tears, and it's like you just it's. I feel like if music isn't making you feel something, it's you're not doing your job.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you on that. Those are definitely the best songs, the ones that really strike emotion.
Right.
Who's your favorite local bands around?
Um. Terrific is a great band from the ski bottling area. Uh, well, what is that? What is that area?
Wellston.
Wellston. Yes. There's so many. There's so many. I travel around this state so much that I forget which direction what is in where. Uh, but yeah, they're great. I don't know if they're still playing, but Appalachian Intellect was a good band that I really enjoy. LBL, I don't know. I think they're done playing too, although they keep teasing us with reunions, but I don't know if it's going to happen. MG Flash, uh, Big Dogs. I mean, uh, they've been doing it for a while. I used to listen to Millennia back when they were together. There's a lot of great. I mean, I could go on forever. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
there's a lot of
I
great
could sit
music
here and
around
name
here.
every single band I've ever heard. Uh, I think a band I would be I would it would be wrong of me not to mention that out of local bands that are influential, I have to mention the Harry Pat Band from Columbus. Their raw style and just influence I've seen. Like I remember when I first met Joe from Terrific. He was a younger guy, and I didn't expect him to know who Harry Pat was, but he totally knew who Harry Pat was. Like their influence in the punk and alternative scene around here never ceases to amaze me.
I'll have to check them out. I'm not aware.
Yeah, they're online. You can check them out.
Nice.
They got recordings and stuff out. They're dirty. It's great. The Harry Pat Band. It's just these two guys. One plays a guitar and it's like a dirty acoustic guitar, and one plays drums, and the drum set is like half of a drum set, but like pots and pans and different like just anything that you can make noise with. And they make this really raw punk kind of um, I don't know how to describe it. Sometimes it's kind of country, sometimes it's kind of punk rock, but it's uh it's always interesting. And it was a two-piece band with no bass player and doing it way before, like we're talking like the the early to mid 90s they were doing this. Like this is way before White Stripes. This is way before like the Black Keys. And yeah, they were just they were a mighty force in Southern Ohio and
Nice.
Columbus.
Definitely have to check them out. Where's your favorite local venues to play?
All my favorite local venues are shut down. There ain't no place for us to play. When you make loud metal music like we do, it's hard to get gigs. So most of the venues that we play are outdoor events. There is a few exceptions. Like I said, most have been closed down. We used to play the bank all the time. My favorite venue is a venue that accepts all musical genres. You know, it's like I believe it's Louis Armstrong said there's only two types of music: good music and bad music. You know, and I think that's true for any genre. You can have good artists in a genre and you can have bad artists in a genre, but you should always be open to any genre. You know, but like, don't get me wrong, if you got a bar that's a country bar and you want country bands, go for it. I feel like there needs to be more venues that are open to do different things, because you never know where a scene is going to start, you know?
Right. With the internet and YouTube and everything, people listen to so much different stuff.
Yeah, I almost think the internet. That's my favorite venue. You know, I don't like it because it's not as personal. I like the person, you know, I like to play in front of people, but it's nice that there's a little more equal footing. And as far as there's a good and a bad. There's, you know, it's good that there's more equal footing, but it's also bad because now there's like a sea of noise.
Right. Right. But bands that would have never had a chance to do anything are able to get out there and be heard now.
Right. I
I,
mean,
I think that's the great thing about it.
yeah, it's particularly great because there's bands, there's talented people that maybe they grew up in a poor area, and you know, and it's like let's say it's the 70s, and you know, you're a musician and you're a good musician and you got a good band, but you live in a poor area and you're just not able to like get to a place where you could be heard by somebody who could record you, and you might go your whole life with never even hearing yourself play, you know, in the age before, you know, cassettes or any easily recordable device was able to. I mean, it's amazing. Now we can have professional recordings so easily. I mean, if not professional, at least like, you know, professional enough to where we can kind of hear ourselves,
You
know.
can get professional sounding recordings
Right.
nowadays without spending $1 million on a
Right.
studio,
Right.
or
It's
or
amazing.
$80 an hour on your local studio.
Yeah. It's like the future's now. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Hell, I bought this camera that I think it's called a Q2N, and it's built with these high compression stereo microphones on top. It's made to record loud bands,
Right.
and it almost sounds like a professional recording. I mean, it's just amazing the things that, I mean, there's cell phones now where people will take their cell phones to a concert, record it, and it sounds good, you know, and like that was
Right.
unheard of like not that long ago.
Yeah. The iPhone has an amazing microphone on it these
Yeah.
days. It's absolutely amazing, and the natural compression you get from it is
Like, I mean, just like my phone right here, this phone has two front facing cameras, one with a wide angle lens so you can selfie with people, like a large group of people, right? And then it has three cameras on the front. One's a wide angle, one's a normal, and then one's like a hyper zoom. But it's like, in order to do that, like, you know, 10 years ago, you would have had to have had a big camera with a bunch of different detachable lenses, and they all would have been expensive as hell. It's amazing
well.
what
I
we can
mean,
do these days.
you carry around more computing power in your pocket than NASA had to send people to the moon.
Right.
It is pretty phenomenal.
Man, every line of that code must have been so, like, they I'm sure they didn't waste anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's take another break and listen to another song, and then we'll wrap it up.
Cool. It all came upon a astronomical theme. Ramshack thoughts of uncommon schemes. You and I once shared the same dream. Lives were used and hours were lost. It was the best of times, but at what cost? Build up the wall and tear down the word. Appreciated by all parties and heard. It all comes in with your stunted verb. This is not the time. I'll see you in my mind. This is not the time. Tried to walk a righteous path and build the Legos like it shows in the graph. He dares not think outside the box. He needs his fix like that shit needs a dog. Your finger points to me and my finger to the clock. Well, I can see in your eyes you have your down. Well, I sure hope everything works out. It looks like the universe has gone that route. This is not the time. I'll see you in my mind. Dust above cloud nine. Oh, fate is so unkind. This is not the time.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot, JC. That sounded awesome.
Thanks for having me.
I just got one more question for you. What's the best song you think you've written?
Oh, wow. Man, this is going to be a hard one because I'm sure that I'm probably going to regret the answer and end up thinking I probably shouldn't have picked that later. But like I said before, I think that the biggest point of music is that it should make you feel something. And my parents haven't seen me play that much. They've been to a couple of our shows, but they don't they don't hear me play that much. They got their own stuff that they do. And one time, my mom did happen to come to practice one time, and we played the song Scarlet Fever for her, and it made her cry. So I think I did my job with that. So I guess, based on that limited information, I guess that would be the best. Maybe I had songs that had better structure. Maybe I've had songs that had catchier or more intricate words or more, creative words, certainly. But I've never got the kind of emotional response out of anybody that I did with my mom with that song. So I'll say that one.
It's all about that one moment.
Yeah. It's funny, right?
Yeah.
Like it almost, yeah. It's just now like when I play the song, I feel that emotion.
Yeah. It always brings you right back to there.
Right.
That's the great thing about music. It's
Right.
it's those songs. A song will pop on the radio that you hadn't heard in 30 years, but it instantly brings up a feeling you had 30 years ago.
It takes you places.
Yeah, that it does. Well, awesome. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me.
Looking forward to Pointless Fest.
Yep.
And,
June, first weekend of June.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Follow Pointless on Facebook, and
yes.
They'll give you updates and make sure that you know where to be at. It's always a good time.
Yeah,
I highly recommend it. And looking forward to the new music coming out.
Also, can I give it? Let me give another shout out because I also play for Black Hat Nation, and I also have another band called River City Mystery, and they're all on Facebook. You should like them all.
Definitely. Looking forward to the new Black Hat album. Definitely looking forward to the long overdue Pointless Pleading album.
Yes, 10 years in the making. Yep.
It's going to be a good one.
Yep.
All right. Thanks again, JC.
Thank you.
So keep up with everything that JC's doing on Facebook. And follow Pointless Pleading on Facebook to find out when Pointless Fest is happening. Also follow us at ManHound Sound Studio on Facebook. And we'll keep you up to date on what's going on with that, as well as all your local artists. For recording, mixing, or mastering services, you can contact us at manhoundsound@gmail.com. My guest next month, old Justin Chambers. I got one word to describe this man. He's authentic. Like him or not like him, he's everything I look for in a songwriter. Until then, I'm your host, Old Bill Wardlow. I'll see you next month. Thanks again.